Are you a toxic male? Do you like to lift? Do you like to eat steak? Do you like to hang out with your bros? You need to stop masturbating. We are no longer tilling the fields, and we're no longer working with our hands, and we're becoming more and more feminized, aiming to use you as an emotional tampon in this sense. But here, you're supposed to convince yourself of something that doesn't make sense and make it make sense. It's asinine. Upon making my first mgtow video related to the Bible, it was a Samson and Delilah video. It basically, most people know that story, that narrative about Samson. He's the strongest man. He gets seduced by Delilah. My, Delilah. He gets seduced by Delilah, gets lied to by Delilah. Why, Delilah? Forgive me, Delilah, I just couldn't take any more.
And scene. Hello there everybody, and welcome to episode 48 of The Descent of Man-osphere, the series where I take you through the ways in which the Man-osphere and its utterly disgusting, reprehensible douchebag inhabitants are trying to reverse human evolution and drag us all back into the fucking sea. And today we're dealing with a Christian fundamentalist, religious, bigoted piece of shit, mgtow. Yeah, this one's gonna be fucking dumb. I'm talking, of course, about Sunrise Hoodie! Now, Sunrise Hoodie is a relatively new content creator with a relatively small audience compared to some of the other mgtow channels, but he's growing. And whilst he isn't necessarily the most verbally disgusting and obvious of misogynist pieces of shit, he is no less hateful towards the woms in his own way.
To me, she wanted to wear the pants in the relationship, even though the order is God, man, woman, then children. She's often narcissistic, which is especially reflected in the Belfie thought. So the gym is a mire nowadays. So I pointed out the gym before, identifying a gym thought. Have you ever ran into a gym thought before? Oftentimes, these type of women are known as Instagram thoughts as well. No wonder men opted out and men began to be labeled as the one far from God. So the difference between men and women when it comes to spiritual connectedness to God is that men often have a more rational and a more consistent relationship. Women, on the other hand, are not inherently more spiritual, despite the lies and messaging has been taught to us. Women are rather more influenced and more acutely influenced to make more sudden progress or declines in their spiritual journey. Thus, the Bible, for example, preaches that men have to be the leaders of the women spiritually and to conduct their paths and gives them a spiritual guide. That is the difference, and thus, that is why you never see male sorcerers these days. Male fortune tellers. If you want to know why that's the case, it's also because Satan knows where it is easier to infiltrate.
Yes, according to this guy, the reason you don't see male sorcerers nowadays, as opposed to, I don't know, the good old days when you saw lots of male sorcerers or something, the reason you don't see male sorcerers nowadays is because the devil knows where it's easiest to infiltrate. Because apparently the devil didn't always know that or something. Anyway, let's not get too bogged down in the fact that he's an illogical piece of shit. Just yet. Now, in that load of old fucking mental bollocks, you see the kernel of this religious nonsense that he tries to impart upon his audience. He basically tries to force and crowbar biblical teachings into a mgtow context, and it really doesn't work.
The division occurs when, we label the men that have went back with women and exile them from the community. So, Christ said he was going to come to heal the sick, This is the thing. We are all the sick, all right? With this especially. And we have sex with a woman that we should not be having sex with, and she takes the power from you. This is what you do.
You see, that's just fucking gibberish. That didn't make any fucking sense. Look, you can be religious and mgtow, but you can't be religiously mgtow, if that makes sense. mgtow isn't compatible with the teaching of the Bible, where it says, get married and, have kids and be fruitful and all the rest of it. You could be a misogynist piece of shit and live by the Bible, but you can't really be a mgtow and live by the Bible. It just doesn't fucking work. But anyways, moving on. Now, just like all of the other fucking wretched mgtow hive of scum and villainy, Sunrise Hoodie is a hypocritical sack of shit, who on one hand claims to really care about the shaming of men.
So toxic masculinity, male disposability, they go hand in hand with these shaming lines, and just expect more of them. But don't be that man. Don't fall to this petty shaming line. And the next thing is just more shaming lines. Guys, I go through shaming lines every week, and you receive them here, being called a virgin and being shamed for it or whatever it is.
But he is a massive fucking hypocrite and shames men who disagree with him in any way whatsoever on a regular fucking basis.
The thing is, the more you white knight, the less attractive you become. All it does is makes guys white knights, and there's always a machine or a bench that is not occupied, even though the simp was just using it 5 minutes ago. And if you're not careful, you'll end up with a fish tank full of beta fish, just like you as a beta male. The gym simp. No, we are not talking about gym bros and chugging gallons of water. We are not talking about the gym thought today. Today we're going to kick back and enjoy another story of gym bro simpery, known as the gym simp, and its bigger meanings for men and female nature. And maybe we can help conceptualize this guy as the gym version of the white knight. The fact that this is occurring was yet another reason why I wanted to create this channel, because the church, maybe we'll touch on this, but the church essentially breeds a lot of cucks.
Yes, Sunrise Hoodie, you are a prick. Fuck you. Now, another way that Sunrise Hoodie, who is quite a bland, generic sort of a chap, it seems, another way that he blends into the great morass of the manosphere is the way in which he constantly references, to the point of fucking obsession, I would suggest, the movie Fight Club.
Hey guys, in the paradigm, thanks to single parent homes that are largely led by women that earn custody over their children thanks to the feminist leading courts, is the product. And why does this line from Fight Club resonate with us? I saw Fight Club at 14 and that kind of gripped me, but
Fight Club is such a hardcore movie too. Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, at 14 I remember seeing that and the message resonating with me. And I know they're pissed now. They're very pissed off, as Brad Pitt said in the basement of Lou's Tavern. We're all going to leave this earth alone in one way or another. Your life should not be about risk aversion. It should be about creation in the present moment. And I know I'm going back to Fight Club once again, as I did yesterday.
I'm 25. Make my yearly call again. See, Dad, now what? He says, I don't know. Get married.
You can't get married. I'm a 30-year-old boy.
We're a generation of men raised by women. I'm wondering if another woman is really the answer we need.
Welcome back, mgtow men.
Yes, Sunrise Hoodie is constantly referencing the movie Fight Club in order to try and impart some teachings of what he considers to be wisdom to his utterly pathetic audience. And note that I said the movie Fight Club rather than the book Fight Club, because it does appear that he hasn't actually read the fucking book. I could be wrong on that, but it doesn't appear so, because if he had read the book, he would know that neither Tyler Durden or the narrator character, the Brad Pitt and Edward Norton characters from the film, are individuals that you would want to follow in any real sense. Tyler Durden is an unhinged, sociopathic, domestic terrorist fucking lunatic who himself is the delusional imaginings of the narrator character, who is a deeply psychologically unwell man, who in the book, although unfortunately not in the movie, finishes the story in a mental hospital after a failed massive suicide terrorist bombing fucking plot, which doesn't work out, which they left out of the movie and makes him seem sort of heroic, because at the end of the movie he actually achieves his goal of blowing up the buildings and all the rest of it, whereas in the book you realise he's actually just a psychologically unwell lunatic who's also a failure. But the point is that you shouldn't be taking fucking life advice from either of those characters, okay? Get your fucking heads from out of your asses. But anyways, moving on, now it's time for... Yes, it's the inevitable bit about rape.
Our Great Depression is our lives.
Hang on a minute, Rory Cats, are we doing the fucking Fight Club thing as well now? Shut the fuck up. You dickhead. Anyways, for Sunrise Hoodie's inevitable bit...
Get me some fucking chicken!
Look, I'll get you some chicken in a minute, alright? I'm just doing the video. Jesus fucking Christ. Fucking cat. Anyways, as I was saying before, I was so rudely interrupted by a ginger dickhead. For Sunrise Hoodie's inevitable bit about rape, we're going to take a look at a video he did, which was him reading out and responding to a piece of correspondence from one of his audience who had claimed to have been falsely accused of rape. Let's take a look, shall we?
From that moment, I felt as though everything came crashing down on me. I could not believe what I was hearing. Nothing will prepare anyone to hear someone admitting that they are about to get a false allegation just to punish you. In anger, I then began to tell her to leave, get out of my sight. She began to shout from the top of her voice that I can't believe you raped me. I pushed her away and ran back into my apartment to call the police. I looked outside and X went to my car and started to scratch all four sides. I began to feel nothing but anger and hatred and ran outside and pushed her away. She fell backwards onto the ground and started crying. A few moments later, the police arrived, and before they got out of the car, X smirked and remarked, "You're going to pay for this." This is something on the movies right there. The police escorted X away in the car, and the other officers took my side of the story, surprisingly.
Why is that surprising in the fucking slightest? You do know how police investigations work, right? They take, the statements of both, or indeed all, of the parties involved and match those stories to the known facts and the evidence and come to a conclusion as to whether to proceed with some sort of prosecution via the prosecution service. That's how that works. So why are you remotely surprised about it? Your victim playing bullshit really is fucking amazing. You've even managed to convince yourself that the police don't even take the fucking story from the accused man at all. It's ridiculous. You really are fucking deluded.
My lawyer, I'm in Europe, kept me updated with developments throughout 8 months. I received official confirmation that there would be no charges brought against me, as there was no credible evidence for the accuser to bring this case to court.
So basically what you're saying here is that the system worked, okay? He was falsely accused, if we're to believe his story. Let's just go with it, right? He was falsely accused, the police investigated, found there was no credible evidence, and didn't charge him. Yay. But the thing is, you mgtows and MRAs and fucking PUAs, the Man-osphere fucking human detritus, you garbage, right? Go on about how all it takes is an accusation and the police always believe the accuser and then they'll just lock a man up on a woman's say-so, when that's clearly and demonstrably not true, as proven by this fucking case. You lying sacks of shit.
And it changed me. Sunrise, I wanted to share this with you because all the Me Too hysteria has done nothing but bring all this back.
Right, you think the Me Too people are hysterical. Cool story, bro. Also, I'm sure that the women who've been telling their stories of being raped and sexually assaulted over decades, I'm sure they feel really bad that their emancipation from decades of mental torture and, the crimes that were committed against them, I'm sure they feel really bad that that has made you remember the time when literally nothing happened. The story was investigated and you received no charge against you whatsoever. I mean, it really does take a special kind of fucking self-centered narcissistic prick to hear stories of women who, after decades and decades, have finally been allowed and had the space to come out and tell their stories of horrific crimes that have been perpetrated against them and make it all about yourself. I mean, you really are a piece of fucking dog shit.
I was very fortunate that there was due process when I was dealing with this false allegation to clear my name. I'm forever thankful that the authorities treated me in a fair way. I very much doubt I would receive the same treatment if this had happened today.
And in that moment we see why the mgtow group are so fucking dangerous, okay? Because I'm absolutely certain that if this guy had gone through this experience now, he'd be treated basically exactly the same as he was then. But the mgtow echo chamber has poisoned his fucking mind to the point where he thinks that the system has changed enormously in that time. They've convinced him that the system is so dead set against men and that false rape claims are an epidemic. Actual fucking hysterical nonsense, propaganda, bullshit.
So we are in the midst of this Me Too movement, and I'm not even going to go there, as I know that everyone is nauseated over continued referencing of it and hearing it pop up in your newsfeed.
Well, yeah, but you wankers aren't nauseated by the crimes that have been committed against these women over decades. You're nauseated that rape and sexual assault are not being tolerated in the way they once were. And in that, I cannot think of a fucking better, more crystal clear example to show that the Man-osphere is a collection of rape and sexual assault enthusiasts. You people fucking disgust me. Anyways, having calmed down ever so slightly, let's take a look at another video of his entitled mgtow, the world is gynocentric.
So today I wanted to look at a term that's thrown around a lot in the mgtow community. There are a lot of words, there are a lot of colloquialisms that have been used a lot lately that if you're just getting into mgtow, you might not know what they mean. you might hear a lot of the Major mgtow voices on YouTube, like Turd Flinging Monkey, mgtow 101, Sandman, obviously, and there are a variety of people have different flavors, different tastes.
Yes, we get it, right? It's all the colours of the misogyny fucking rainbow. Now please, stop rambling and get on with the fucking point.
But the one that we want to talk about today is gynocentrism. So basically, I'm going to pull up a Urban Dictionary definition of the word gynocentrism.
Oh yes, gynocentrism, of course. You're a mgtow, so obviously you're going to spread that nonsense, right? Gynocentrism, the basic idea is that the world is run for and by the woms. Patently not true. Basically just mgtow / MRA / general manospherian conspiratorial dipshittery. And to add on to that, the definition of gynocentrism he's going to use comes from Urban Dictionary. Yes, we're dealing with a real fucking scholar here. Obviously.
Basically, here's the setting. The definition is always putting the woman first, even if it's to the detriment of others. This often results in female supremacy. And this little situation that is played out. Man 1. You should always pay your woman's bills. Man 2. But aren't men and women equal? Shouldn't she pay her own bills? Man 1. Oh, yes, that was stupid of me. The gynocentrism in our culture prevents me from thinking logically at times. I apologize. So I want to look at, do we live in a gynocentric world? So yes, we do live in a gynocentric world.
No, we don't. And also, as expected, that definition was a load of old fucking shite, you clown.
And I'm going to bring up 8 little examples as to why we live in a gynocentric world, and becoming aware of these things will help us better avoid these pitfalls and just become more aware of the disadvantages that men have and why we should avoid relationships ultimately. So, number 1, you put yourself at risk in a workplace that is not gynocentric. So, if you speak your mind as a male and don't agree with favoritism towards women and the continued preaching of their strength beyond what is true of a female, you risk being fired and knocked off your climb to the top of the corporate ladder.
Firstly, I presume you meant is gynocentric rather than is not gynocentric. Now that might seem nitpicky, but they are literally the exact opposite of one another. And of course, words have meanings, right? And when you're trying to describe what things are and impart knowledge to people, those words and the precise order you put them in really fucking matter. Also, your video is pre-recorded and not live, so there really is absolutely no excuse for you to make such a basic, piss-poor fucking error. And secondly, as to the substance of your point, right, there are tons and tons of examples of corporate fucking misogynist pieces of shit who prospered enormously, right, regardless of their misogynistic arseholery. So where exactly is this corporate gynocentrism then?
If you don't work in a job like construction or maybe as an athlete or in fitness, for example, you're risking your climb to the top of the corporate ladder if you're not gynocentric in your thoughts. So this is where I recommend to a lot of people that want to talk about mgtow online. There's a lot of avenues to do so without being jeopardizing your career.
No, right? Now you're changing the fucking goalpost, because not being gynocentric is not the same as making mgtow content, okay? Those are two very different states of affairs. Because if you identify yourself as mgtow and take that label upon yourself, as you indeed have, what you are doing is aligning yourself with a fucking hate group, chock full of rape apologists, and indeed rape advocates in many cases, who sit there fantasizing about enacting violence upon women, which is something that employers should absolutely take fucking seriously. Whereas not being gynocentric is meaningless nonsense. It's nothing, okay? Move on.
The next one. Men admire women and women admire women. So I wouldn't say I would say that men don't admire men.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. You're so right on this, right? Men never ever admire other men. I mean, the idea of men admiring other men is ridiculous. It's never happened. It's never been known in the history of the fucking world. Sarcasm is a dish best served cold.
This third one is something that my mom used to say to me all the time, and it didn't really register with me until probably within the last year, about how kind of off-kilter this saying is. And it really makes me cringe. So she would always say, "You're such a good gentleman. Your wife will be so proud of you."
So let me get this straight, right? The world is gynocentric because your mum said a thing. Right. Okay, look, Your mum assumed that you were heterosexual, and on that point I think she was correct, and she assumed that you would want to get married at some point because that was the socially expected norm of the time, and the rest is pretty fucking straightforward. If you act in a generally positive way, those around you, your loved ones, your friends, your family, all the rest of it, will act in a positive way and be proud of that in response. It's very fucking simple, okay? That shouldn't need to be explained to you, a grown adult. Also, I can't help but feel that Mama Sunrise Hoodie was being very fucking generous with you, because you are not a gentleman of any sort. You are a very unpleasant young man.
So this kind of dovetails into the next one where men are emasculated. Just look at the mainstream sitcoms that muddle our minds and dominate TV. In all of them, the female, wife, or girlfriend is in control and seemingly has it together. King of Queens, Everybody Loves Raymond, and even Star Wars portray men as helpless, in need of direction, deplorable, inept, and utilitarian.
Firstly, Star Wars is not a sitcom. If you meant TV and film more generally, then perhaps you should have fucking said that. Again, as I said earlier, right? Words are rather important. They impart meaning, which allow the listener to understand what the fuck you're trying to convey to them. Words are very powerful things. Use them wisely. Or at the very least, put some amount of thought and effort into scripting your fucking videos, you lazy prick. But in terms of your actual point about emasculated males in popular culture, sitcoms really aren't a good yardstick for virtually anything other than what some people find at least partially funny at that moment in time. Also, a rather interesting point that I think totally fucks your worldview would be the kind of numbers of people involved based on gender in the making of, TV and film. I've got some for you here. I'm going to read them out, which is not my usual style here in this series, but I'm a lazy fucker too sometimes, and these are a lot of numbers, and I can't be asked to remember all of them. So here we go. Of the top 250 grossing films in 2017 in America, only 7% were directed by women. Yeah. Only 13% of the writers on those films were women. Only 17% of the executive producers were women. Only 5% of the cinematographers, 3% of the composers, 4% of the sound designers. And of those 250 films, 58% of them had no female executive producer whatsoever. Which would seem to point to a rather basic fact here. This is men doing whatever it is that you're perceiving they're doing. If there are emasculated men on screen, it's because men are putting them there. And also, it puts pay to your nonsense about women ruling the world, when so few of them have, actual control over popular culture in terms of, television and film.
You do look at Han Solo. He's probably one of the first only instances of mgtow in Star Wars.
Oh, I don't know. There were some pretty hateful people. I mean, Admiral Akbar was pretty transphobic.
It's a trap!
Ho, ho, ho! See what I did there? Yeah, you'll never watch that scene again in quite the same way. You're very welcome.
The next one, you don't see commercials for women about what to buy your husband on Valentine's Day or Christmas or even Father's Day.
Well, actually, yes you fucking do. There are loads and loads of examples, like these ones, of advertisements aimed at women telling them, or at least very much suggesting to them, the sorts of things they might want to buy for men. So again, you're wrong.
It's just a void thing. You have to spend more money on your girl to be able to keep her, which is another whole issue, and this also goes into the next instance, the saying happy wife, happy life. So the thing about this statement that's so dangerous is that it's almost laughed about. It's joked about. Men will laugh it off, or if they're in an all male setting and it's brought up, they're gonna say happy wife, happy life, and they're just gonna say it kind of as a throwaway line. There's actually more to it. And I think that happy wife, happy life is almost expected, and it's preached as something factual.
Right, because how else exactly is that situation supposed to fucking work then? If your partner is generally happy, your life is generally going to be happier. If, however, right, your partner is unhappy but your life is fucking brilliant, I would suggest that you don't actually care about that person whatsoever, so why the fuck are you with them? Like, again, it's very fucking simple sociology. I'm not teaching you great fucking hidden truths of the world. It is very simple. Why does this need to be explained to you? Also, that saying that you mentioned caught on because it rhymes, and people are very simplistic at heart.
The next one, laws aren't made to protect men. I don't have to get into this one. You can look at alimony.
Okay, I've cut him off there, right? Because for about the next minute or so, he just rambles off the usual laundry list of MRA talking points, okay? They don't actually care about them, but they use them to try and beat down feminists, or basically anyone who isn't exactly like them. So I'm not going to subject you to that long list of just fucking air. It might as well just be air, okay? Because he doesn't actually care about those issues. Firstly, Sunrise Hoodie, you're just factually incorrect to suggest there aren't laws to protect men. Basically, every piece of civil rights legislation that's ever existed is also for men. So those are protections for men, gay men, black men, and so on, right? Also, there are laws specifically just for men as well in places like Saudi Arabia. And that kind of hideously patriarchal society, is that the society you want in America? I don't know whether you would say yes or no to that. And also, regardless of whether you said yes or no, I don't know if I could trust you. Also, I think it's worth bearing in mind that the issues you face, as with the ones in TV and film, they're brought about by governments, corporations, military establishments, and parliaments that are made up overwhelmingly by men, okay? In some cases, exclusively so, of course. So how the fuck is it the fault of women when it's men bringing on these problems?
So those are 8 little takeaways to show what gynocentrism is.
Yes, and they were a load of old bollocks. Well done! Anyways, I'm done with this prick. I'm totally fucking done. Let's wrap this shit up, shall we? Well, what is there to say about Sunrise Hoodie that I haven't already said? Basically nothing. He's a religious fundamentalist, mgtow, and a particularly boring, bland, unoriginal, and fucking stupid one at that. So, with all of that being said, there is just one thing left for me to say, one message for me to relay, another piece of absolutely unintended poetry there for you. Anyways, Sunrise Hoodie, go fuck yourself.